welcome into 100 Days of ServiceNow. This is day 17, and I am so excited about the guest that I have on today's stream. The person I have on today's stream has single-handedly almost, especially in recent times, placed ham in his back and carried it up the mountaintop. He is a course creator. He's a lead project manager. He is the Lord of Ham. And before I introduce him, hello, I'm Kylie Alexander, technical trainer at GlideFast Consulting, and I want to introduce to you someone who I got mad respect for, and that is, put your hands together for Laurence Tindall. Laurence Tindall, welcome to the stream.
All right, thank you, Carly. That was a really nice warm welcome. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for being an air horn type of guy. I'm so excited to have you here, Laurence. Laurence, you know that I am very fond of your work. You are someone who I have followed, first kind of quietly, and then when I got the great pleasure to be able to work with you at GlideFast, I was able to make it a little bit more known how much I appreciate and respect your work. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, and I appreciate the invite. It was short notice, but I'm glad we could get together today in this beautiful sunny afternoon, before the weekend starts.
Yeah, for sure. One of these things, and people don't often know it, is that I so enjoy these streams, but quiet as it's kept, each of them is a bit of an experiment because you never know what's going to happen. The thing about live is that anything can happen, and oftentimes anything does happen. And I want to give a shout out to all of you who are joining me live, and a shout out to those of you joining us on the replay. We got, I think, about 100 folks who signed up for this, and we don't take it lightly that you've carved out part of your day to talk about hardware asset management. So good to have you. Laurence, how the
Thank
heck
you.
did you get into ServiceNow?
Oh, that's a good story. So I got into it in, I would say, about 2014. It was actually kind of by accident. So I was working for a TV channel in the Middle East, and before I worked in IT, I was working in media production. So I was doing music videos, things like that in the UK, and I wanted to get into video production. So there was an opportunity to go and work at a company called Al Jazeera, which is a TV channel in the Middle East. So I went to work there, and when I started there, I got placed into the inventory asset room. So it's where they manage all the assets, like servers, cameras, laptops, like that kind of stuff. So I started there, and on my first day, I was introduced to some of my colleagues, and they were like, this is the software we use to manage the assets. And they were tinkering around on it, playing around, adding assets. And I was like, oh, what's this? So I took a look. Instantly, within the first day, I was hooked. It was, I don't know, it didn't feel like work, adding assets in ServiceNow, tracking assets, responding to tickets. For me, it didn't feel like work. It felt very, I don't know, it just had a good feeling about it, right? And that's kind of where my passion started. And I think I like to be a very organized person. So
Yeah.
being able to manage assets, update their information and things like that, really, really resonated with me because it was like organizing things at home or organizing your life, right? So that's
Yeah.
kind of how I got into ServiceNow. And then I've been on and off the platform ever since 2014. So it's been 9 years now. But I've spent, I would say, full time, at least half of my career within the platform, or I've been pretty close to the platform looking from a distance. So.
Yeah, organization is the foundation of ServiceNow, so it makes sense that you resonated. I'm always compelled to ask folks, how did you end up in ServiceNow? Because everyone has a bit of a different path, but we all kind of ended up in the same place. And what I've also found is that I've not met one person in this ecosystem who is not just absolutely enthusiastic about the platform, and you're no exception to that.
Yeah, exactly. One thing I think that makes ServiceNow very successful is the user interface is very repetitive. It's
Mm-hmm.
very modern and sleek, and that repetitiveness makes you adopt the platform in a way no other tool or platform out there has. Right? Like every screen is very similar, every form is very similar. So whether you're working on an incident, an asset, a problem, anything like that, it resonates very well every time you have that. So you're reliving that same experience every time. And I
Yeah.
think that's what makes ServiceNow very successful, and that's how it's got to where it is today.
Yeah, I appreciate the intuitive nature of it as well. You have done something professionally that I think a lot of people should take note of is that you've taken a particular area of ServiceNow and you really drilled into it. Talk to me about not just how you got to HAM, you kind of explained that, but how did you decide to, what compelled you to really focus in at the level that you did? I don't know if I mentioned this to the folks. You're an author, you have courses, you've really like claimed HAM as your own.
Yeah, I want all the ham, I love ham. But that's a really good question. So, you know, when I look back in my life, I kind of always looked at this approach of it's better to be an expert at one thing than be mediocre at like 10 things, right?
Yeah.
Because if you think about just from like your own brand and your own value as a person, when it comes to delivering value to organizations, delivering value to people, I think it's better that you're like really, really good at one thing or an expert at one thing than being good at like 10 things, because it goes into any other industry. It's like construction. Would you rather hire like someone that's okay at a lot of things or that's really, really good at one thing and you
Mm-hmm.
can depend that they're going to get the job done correctly because you hired them to do that one specific thing? And that's kind of like my, philosophy around that. And that's always resonated with me growing up. Whenever I've done something, I've always gave it 110%. I'd
Mm-hmm.
never wanted to give it 50%. And when I do something 110%, it kind of consumes me, right? Like, that's it. Like, if I'm doing hardware asset management, that's it. I can't hear any other noise. Nothing can distract me. I'm doing ham or nothing.
Ham or nothing. I love that.
Exactly.
Yeah, that whole jack of all trades, master of none, it definitely resonates with me. And I have to say, when I talk to the ITAM folks at GlideFast, the enthusiasm from that pod is infectious. There's like when I started being around you all and going to the COEs, the Center of Excellence meetings that you all have, I get in there and I'm like, "Hey, look, ITAM for life," because
Exactly.
you all just bring a level of passion to it, and I think what's special about that is that the customer really benefits from that because you all are so passionate about it, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I think when you're passionate about it, it really helps the customers get passionate about it and they embody it more. Because if they hear the passion in your voice, then they're going to want to be just as passionate about that too.
Yeah,
It's like when one of your friends is getting excited about something, and you
yeah.
really want to hear what they're telling you, it's kind of like that.
I think about what you just said about the 110%, and I think your dedication to it at that high level, it also allows you to understand some of the nuances and some of the smaller details, the finer details that otherwise would be overlooked if you didn't have that level of efficiency and focus on ham the way that you do. Because you have ham, and then you're also working with a fantastic group with Sandeep, focus on enterprise asset management. Chris Keyser focus on software asset
Mhm.
management. It's like you guys are like the an amazing trio there. Talk to me a little bit more about what it's like working with folks like that.
Yeah, it's really good working on a day-to-day basis with folks like that because we all have each other's back, and it's good to know that like if I need some software advice, I've got Kiza to talk to, right? And I want to know about enterprise asset management, I can talk to Sandeep. And it's really good when we all work on a project together because we're kind of like this trifecta of talent, right? And we're kind of like a tornado of good talent that's going to hit the project. And we've all got each other's backs and we all understand what lanes are in, what we're doing. And that really helps for the customer, when they're trying to implement an asset management program.
I think about the webinar that you all have coming up in a couple weeks here. I think it's
Mhm.
like right around I think it's the 23rd of March, Thursday, I believe. The 23rd of March, you have a workshop coming up with all three of you on deck. How lucky will the attendees be to have all three of you on deck? When I think of hardware asset management, however, I think of that stuff is going to cost a lot of money.
Exactly.
That's going to cost a lot of money, and I'm just throwing money into a fire pit, basically. But
Mhm.
what I like about and what makes me intrigued about the webinar that you all have coming up is that you're talking about return on investment pretty quickly with hardware asset management, SAM and EAM as well. But how does that happen? How do you make that happen with a ServiceNow solution from GlideFast?
So that's a really good question. So with hardware asset management, obviously you need to follow like the industry best practices to even try and realize the gains from that return on investment. So using ServiceNow, the benefit of that is that all of the hardware asset management professional workflows, modules, and features are all aligned to industry best practices. So essentially, if you adopt those features and you follow those workflows and you get everyone on your team on board within your organization to follow those workflows, you're essentially following the best practices. So as long as you're using the out of the box features, you're already aligned to the hardware asset management best practices and you're going to realize those benefits, right? Especially if you're using things like Discovery 2 to discover your assets, to put them into service now, you now have that visibility of all the assets that are connected to your network. And then with
Sure.
that data fed into the system, and then able to take action from a procurement standpoint, from a maintenance and management standpoint, from RMAs, and then all the way to the end of the life cycle where you're doing asset disposals and things like that.
Sure. In 2023, or are organizations fully aware of all of the hardware and all of the assets that they have uh, within their reach? Is there a lot of confusion or misunderstanding or just not knowing what actually is in within reach and within the domain of a particular organization? What have you found when you work on various projects?
It really depends on the organization, right? So you've got some companies that are very mature at asset management. You've got some that are very immature. They don't know exactly what they have. Or maybe they're only tracking certain types of assets like end user devices. And I think one of the biggest like trends we're seeing now is a lot of companies, they were tracking the IT assets, but now they're looking to track additional assets. And that's where enterprise asset management comes
Hmm.
in. So if you think about hospitals, right? They want to do the same what they're doing for the IT assets, but for the hospital assets. So for like the hospital equipment, like blood pressure machines. I don't know. I'm not a doctor or anything like that or a surgeon, so I don't know all the types of assets they're using. But anytime you go to a hospital or a doctor's office, you see all this multi-million-dollar equipment. They want to track those assets just like that they're tracking their IT assets. They want to know all the CI information. They want to know who's using it, when's the end of life, what's the latest software version on it, when does it need to be updated. You
Sure.
know.
I think about how each organization, like you think about like healthcare, health sciences, how they may
Mhm.
need like a particular perspective, and then you may need something different for like paramilitary organizations, like say law enforcement, fire department, how each of those will need a little bit of a unique perspective. How how is your team able to accommodate that when they bring you on to create an ITAM solution for them?
It's a good question. So the good thing is ServiceNow already supports us in that direction. So you'll see with enterprise asset management, they're bringing a lot of new CI classes. So typically out of the box in ServiceNow, you've got like your servers, your switches, laptops, computers, IP phones, things like that. But now with enterprise asset management, you're seeing things like vehicles. So if you want to track a vehicle, you can track that. So really the platform is setting us as consultants up for success and the customers too that are going to be using the platform. So we're able to use the best practices that they've instilled in the platform, and we're able to bring that to those organizations that we work with. And one of the good things about asset management is that the core principles are really the same. Like hardware asset management, managing IT assets is essentially the same thing as managing medical assets, right? It's a physical
Yeah,
thing you can touch and see. It moves around, different people use it. It has a warranty. There's no real difference between a smart fridge in your house and the laptop, right?
sure.
Smart fridges connect to your network. It has a configuration name. It has an IP address. So,
Yeah, so it sounds like we're talking about a couple things. One, we're talking about there is a unique kind of approach for a particular type of asset, but then at the same time, there are some things that there's some common things with all assets. And I wanted to bring this up because I know that this webinar is taking place on March 23rd. If you all see a QR code here on this screen, if you scan it, uh, if you are on your laptop or desktop, or if you are on your phone, no worries, because I placed the link in the description for this video. But this is the sign up page, and I giggle a little bit. because I believe, is it in here? Yes, yes, it is in here. So there's going to be a lucky winner for someone who signs up. Tell us what they're going to win.
You'll win a copy of my book, Hardware Asset Management in ServiceNow, which was published I think about 5, 6 weeks ago now, or January 9th. So, yeah, a lot longer
January
than
9th.
that. 2 months ago. Wow, 2 months ago today. Seems like 2 weeks ago.
Wow, yeah. How long did it take you to put that together? Because this isn't your first time at the rodeo. This is your second book here. How long did it take you to put this one together, this volume together?
Yeah, so really, the story behind this book is over the years, I've been documenting and collecting a lot of knowledge over hardware asset management and ServiceNow. So I've basically like collected all of that knowledge over the past 3, 4 years, and I've had lots of Word docs that where I've created my own, information and guides and course materials. So then, over the past year, I was thinking, people like to take courses and things like that, but also some people like to read books and to kind of have it in hand so you can just flick to the right page and get the quick answers that you're needing, like with your team. So what happened was with all that information I had a week off at Christmas and I was supposed to go on vacation, didn't go. So I was like, what am I going to do with this week off? I want to be productive so I can finish the year with something to celebrate and say, I accomplished something. So I basically stuck myself in a room, aka my office, and put all this knowledge together, formatted it. I probably spent about like 70, 80 hours like putting it all together. I had a graphic designer to, build the graphics for it. I got like a Kindle professional guy who built the Kindle version of it and all this kind of stuff. Had people review it. And then once we packaged it all together, and then published it in the beginning of the year. So that's kind of like the story of that. And everything I've learned throughout my career doing hardware asset management, everything I've learned about ServiceNow that relates to hardware asset management, I put into this book. So it's got a ton of value that's really going to help you either implement hardware asset management or it's going to give you quick tips and tricks.
Yeah, I'm pulling up the reviews now just because I like to look at the reviews. And you have some really great reviews here. You have come to a level of mastery with hardware asset management. Let me bring you back in. I think of you as a subject matter expert in this area, perhaps more so than anyone at the mothership. Hey, and if someone at the mothership saying like, "Yo, I know hardware asset management like that as well," let me know and we could chat. We could chop it up. But I say this because your dedication, your consistency to this particular product suite has paid off so that you're able to compile a volume of material so that folks can learn from that. Can you speak to, talked about it before, but can you speak a little bit more about this level of consistency that you have had in this area and why that becomes a huge win for organizations that bring you on and your team on, your pod on for a solution for asset management?
That's a good question. Well, I think like all the years of experience and the things we've seen provides customers a lot of value because, we've kind of walked the walk. We've seen a lot of things over the years. So when we're implementing a solution, when you're working with GlideFast or anyone on the ITAM COE, you're not just hiring someone that can implement ServiceNow or they can, load assets or show you how to manage assets, right? You're dealing with people that know the actual processes. So if ServiceNow or we had no software, right, and you ask me, how do we manage assets? How do we dispose assets, right? I can give you that information in a level of detail that's going to help you set up your asset management program, all systems aside, right? So I think that's the level of expertise that you're getting with GlideFast. It's not just on the ServiceNow platform, it's actually the practice at hand. And that, like you're saying, that consistency over the years is what creates that that expertise that we're able to provide our clients.
Yeah. Talk to me about what hardware asset management, what role it plays in forecasting budgets.
Well, role it plays. It's a big piece, especially with now. When it's hard to like order large quantities of assets from certain manufacturers with the chip shortage and all that kind of stuff. But definitely, asset management is huge. Is a huge player in like the refresh of assets and getting budgets. So for example, let's say you're a company, you got 10,000 end users, and let's just say you didn't know how many assets you had or who was using what or how old those assets were. There's no way for you to budget for the next financial year or the year after that how much IT is going to spend on assets. So when you have an asset management program in place, you're able to say, okay, well, we just purchased 10,000 computers 3 years ago. We know they have an average life of around 3 years. So we know that next year we're going to have to refresh 10,000 computers. So what's the average price of a computer today? Which models are we looking at? Um, you know, Things like that, right? So just having that visibility, having that data enables you as an organization to be able to say, okay, next year we're going to need $2 million in our budget to buy new computers for our end users, right? So if you didn't have that information, you wouldn't be able to get that number because you wouldn't know who has what, how old it is, are the machines slow and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it sounds to me that you're leveraging automations and workflows to bring that information to the forefront.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's also using discovery too, because with discovery, from an ITOM standpoint, you're able to scan the network, you're able to see what computers have what RAM, what computers have how much disk space left, which users are not using their computers, right? Maybe you've got some users that have two computers and they're not using one of them. So with discovery and asset management, you're able to say, okay, let's reclaim that asset back, let's put it back in stock, and let's redeploy it so we're not wasting, assets within the company.
Let's pretend that I'm a CIO. Let's say I'm the CIO of a large court system,
Hmm.
LA Superior Court, since I'm in Los Angeles. And I'm looking, and I don't know. I know I got a lot of stuff, but I don't know where it is, and it's probably under and probably over here in this part of the county, and there's another part in that part of the county, and there's a whole lot of it that I just don't know.
Hmm.
Kind of give me just like a high level view of what I can expect when I come to your pod and I say, hey, I need to get some organization here. How can you help me with this? I want to save some money. I want to return on my investment. I feel like I'm throwing a lot of money away and I don't know where everything is.
Hmm.
What could you tell me?
Well, what I could tell you is, or how we could help you, maybe is a better way to frame it, is that first we could do like an item maturity assessment. We could find out what processes do you have in place, what assets do you have visibility of, and where your like biggest leakage is from a
Mm.
financial standpoint for your IT department, right? So we can look at all the requests, all the purchase orders that are happening, all that kind of stuff, and then from there we can start to build an implementation plan to say, okay, you don't have visibility of purchase orders, you don't know how many computers are here, how many are there. So then we can put together a plan that involves using other tools too, maybe like Microsoft SCCM, or maybe using ServiceNow Discovery to discover those assets. And then we'll be able to get a more accurate picture of what assets you have. And then we'll be able to work with other teams like procurement, finance, accounting, and things like that to really nail down some processes around how to manage your assets and how to get the biggest return on investment out of your assets.
I wanted to take a look at the chat real quick before we get out of here to make sure that we're not missing any questions. I want to shout out people who are joining us live. I want to give a shout out to Chan, who is here live, Tracy Curry. Um, ah, Phoebe Yawson says that your books are gold.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it, Phoebe.
Denise Elias, thank you for coming. Satya C, thank you for being here. Uh, and Grizel Pamela Lopez Hernandez, thank you so much for joining. Before we get out of here, I just want to take a quick look at some of the work that you are doing to bring folks up who are in the ServiceNow ecosystem, who are looking to kind of skill up. This is itaminstitute.org. This is your website. What can people find here, Laurence?
Yeah, so basically, I offer two courses right now. We're looking at expanding more courses. So we have a course on hardware asset management that teaches you all of the core processes and ways to manage hardware assets within your organization. I also have a course on hardware asset management in ServiceNow. So that's around a 6.5 hour course. Takes you through every single workflow module, everything there is to know around hardware asset management in ServiceNow. And then we also have a certification too for hardware asset managers that really tests your knowledge and abilities and credibility on the subject of hardware asset management. Um, So yeah, that's like a company I started in 2019. It's doing pretty good. We've taught quite a lot of students around the world. If you go down to the courses, drop down, you can click into one of them or the certification. But yeah, basically right now there's around 700 students coming into the program and taking the courses.
Now, is this specific to ServiceNow?
So I have two courses. One is specific to hardware asset management in ServiceNow. The other is not. It's just general
There we go.
hardware asset management. So you can apply, everything that you've learned, you know, to any situation around hardware asset management.
I love it. And so there's going to be a couple of lucky attendees who I believe are going to get not only a book, not only going to get some incredible information, cost saving information at the webinar, but also will be able to get I hope this is correct. They're also going to get access to a course. Is that correct?
Yeah.
They're also going to get access to a course. Okay, listen. Before we get out of here, because we got a lot of people who are entering the ServiceNow ecosystem right now, the floodgates have been opened. If you were entering the ServiceNow ecosystem right now, what would you be doing? I'll give you the floor.
What would I be doing? That's a good question. Well, I would gravitate to whatever kind of gets me excited, right? Because they always say in your career, follow your passion, and everything else will kind of come into play. So I would just get familiar with the system, take the system administration course, and figure out like what features or what areas of the system get you excited. Like, are you into the portal? Do you like discovery? Do you like asset management? Do you like ITSM? Do you like virtual agent? Things like that. So figure out a place that gets you really excited. When I mean like gets you excited, like it's the kind of thing that gets you out of bed in the morning. You think, wow, I cannot wait to get into work today because I just want to, I want to play with this feature more, right? And I want to solve problems with it, and I want to, work with clients on it, right? So.
Yeah, I love what you said about finding an area where it doesn't feel like work. And that
Exactly.
goes back to what we were talking about, and what I find so palpable about, working with folks in your pod, like the enthusiasm is palpable, and it's just wonderful and infectious to be around. Listen, y'all, this is Laurence Tindall. If y'all not following him on LinkedIn, what are you doing with your life? So go over there and give him a follow. Check out the webinar. CIOs, folks of that nature who want to find a solution for asset management. There is an incredible workshop, incredible webinar that's taking place on March 23rd. You can scan the QR code that you see on the screen, or you can click the link that is in the description of this video. I will certainly be there. I'm all about that pen and paper. I am brilliant with pen and paper, and I will be there taking notes and learning everything that I can. Laurence, thank you so much for joining the stream, and I will see you next time. Bye, everybody.